Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to lay out a roadmap for one of the biggest moves any company can make, raising more capital in Thailand. It's a journey for sure, and it's full of critical choices and tight deadlines. But don't worry, we're going to make the whole path crystal clear.
So let's start with the big question, right? How do you actually fund your company's future? Maybe you're planning a huge expansion, or you want to bring in a new strategic partner. The answer, a lot of the time, is the same. You need to increase your company's capital. So let's dive in.
Here's our game plan for today. We'll kick things off with the why, then we'll look at the big decision points, walk through the actual step-by-step process, navigate some of the potential risks, and then we'll wrap it all up with a simple checklist to bring it all home.
Okay, first things first. Before you start any journey, you've got to know where you're going. So why exactly does your company need to raise more capital in the first place? You know, raising capital isn't just about getting more cash in the bank. It's a really powerful strategic tool. You could be beefing up your balance sheet, or maybe funding an acquisition, or even just paying down some expensive debt. For a company that's listed on the stock exchange, it could even be a defensive move, to fix negative equity and avoid getting delisted. The main thing to remember is this: your goal, your why, is what's going to dictate the entire strategy from here on out.
And now we've hit the first and honestly the most important crossroads on our map. The entire path you take from here depends on one simple thing. Are you a private company or are you a public one? And this is a huge deal. Think of it like a quiet country road versus a heavily regulated 6-lane superhighway. Private companies, they cruise along under the civil code with the DBD as their main checkpoint. But public companies, well, they have to navigate the super strict rules of the Public Limited Companies Act, and they're watched over by both the SEC and the SET. Trust me, picking the wrong path here from the get-go is just not an option. Okay, so once you know which rulebook you're playing by, it's time to choose your strategy. How are you actually going to offer these brand new shares to investors? You basically got two main approaches here. A specific purpose increase is all about transparency. You tell your shareholders, hey, we need this exact amount of money to build a new factory. Super clear. A general mandate, on the other hand, is all about flexibility. The shareholders basically give the board a green light to raise capital up to a certain limit whenever a good opportunity pops up in the next year. It's that classic trade-off: transparency versus agility.
So this breaks down the four main ways you can offer shares. A rights offering, or RO, is all about fairness. It gives your current shareholders the first chance to buy the new shares so their ownership doesn't get watered down. A preferential offering, or PPO, is kind of similar but gives you a bit more wiggle room. A private placement, a PP, that's your fast track, perfect for bringing in a specific strategic partner quickly. And finally, the public offering, or PO. That's when you need to cast a really wide net and raise a whole lot of money from the public. All right, you've picked your path. You know your strategy. Now it's time to actually execute the playbook. And this all revolves around calling an extraordinary general meeting, or what everyone calls an EGM, to get your shareholders to approve the plan. The whole thing really breaks down into three clear stages. First, you've got all the prep work. The board gets everything in order and sends out the official meeting notices. Second, you hold the actual meeting and get the vote done. And third, you do all the post-meeting stuff, the legal registrations and disclosures that make it all official. Now, this process runs on a really strict clock, and it's governed by a few key numbers. The first one you need to burn into your brain is 14. By law, you have to give your shareholders at least 14 days' notice before the meeting. No exceptions. It gives them time to get ready. Then, on the day of the meeting, you come to the most critical number of all: 3/4. That's the threshold for what's called a special resolution. To get this approved, you need a 75% majority of the voting shares who are actually there at the meeting. This isn't just a simple majority, it's a really high bar, and it's designed to protect everybody. And as soon as you get that approval, bam! The clock starts ticking again with our final number, 14. You have just 14 days, 2 weeks, to register that result with the DBD. If you miss this final deadline, the whole thing could be thrown out. So you've followed the steps, you've hit your deadlines, but the journey's not over yet. Now we have to talk about how to navigate the minefield, the potential risks and the stuff you really need to watch out for.
And that brings us to the single biggest trade-off in any capital increase, something called dilution. When you create and sell new shares, you're essentially slicing the company pie into more pieces. And for the people who already own a piece, well, their slice just got smaller. Let's see exactly what that looks like.
Let's make this super visual. So imagine this donut represents the whole company. Before the capital increase, this big slice here, that's your percentage of ownership. You own a pretty significant piece of the pie.
Now, watch what happens after new shares are sold to new investors. See? Your slice of the pie is now smaller. Your ownership percentage has been diluted. This is the direct cost of bringing in that new cash, and it's exactly why being transparent with your shareholders is so important. Now, to protect existing shareholders from unfair deals, regulators have built in some really important safeguards, especially for those private placements we talked about. There's something called a silent period, which stops new investors who got a big discount from just dumping their shares on the market right away. And for major deals, an independent financial advisor, or an IFA, has to give an opinion on whether the deal is fair. These rules are there to keep things level.
Whew, we have covered a lot of ground. So to wrap it all up, let's just boil everything we've learned down into a simple, actionable checklist. This is your final takeaway.
So here it is, your final checklist. First, know your status, private or public. That's step 1. Then define your strategy. What is this money really for? Choose the right method that actually fits that goal. Next, follow the timelines. Those 14-day windows are not suggestions. Be totally transparent with your shareholders always. And maybe most importantly, don't try to do this alone. Get experts like legal and financial advisors to help guide you.
And that's it. That's your roadmap to increasing company capital in Thailand. It's a journey of strategy, precision, and good communication. Now you have the map, so the only question left is, are you ready to grow?